Barrister, you appear to be suggesting that one branch of government has a kind of a monopoly on patriotism.
Exactly.
And I want to just be very clear here, because when you talk about the wrongdoing in the legislature, many Nigerians would posit to you that indeed there has been some wrongdoing even in the executive.
Of course.
Now, when you look at the conditions in the country today, how would you advise, for example, the legislature, from your vantage point now, to interact with the executive at a time when the legislature invites a sitting Inspector General of Police and repeatedly he refuses to appear? Is it not at that point the responsibility of the president perhaps to say, look, you need to go and answer these questions?
See, there is no doubt that the legislative houses, they have powers to invite, like the constitutional power, it's even anyone. That's, I'm not going to shy away from that. They have the powers. Now, that power also needs to be exercised judiciously and in the interest of the public and in the interest of their functions. Like I told you earlier, when initially the document suppressed is in the public domain, the actual reason they called the Inspector General of Police was to ask him about the treatment meted out on Senator Dino Melai. Later, immediately, when they saw that this document was wrong and it leaked out and the public outcry, they immediately changed it to say, no, what we want is for you to come and explain the security situations in the country. Now, at that time, the IG said he had a prior commitment somewhere and sent a DIG, a second-in-command to him, who is familiar with every aspect of operations, the security, the Nigerian police force is handling. I'm not here holding brief for the IG of police, but I'm trying to say, although they do have the powers to summon, and the executive should ensure that their members, their appointees, should honor these invitations. I agree wholeheartedly with that. But the Senate also, or the National Assembly, should and must exercise these powers judiciously and in the interest of the elected, the people that elected.
Honorable, go ahead and respond.
I'm happy he agrees that we have the powers to invite, and we ought to invite those people. But it keeps going on about this falsity. Where on earth did it get this evidence that we...
I saw it. It was
hold on. What's in public? Have you visited the National Assembly, asked for the votes and proceedings? Have you read the votes and proceedings of those days? So I'm afraid, you see, when you buy into these ideas or this falsity that's been perpetrated by the executive and other people who do not have the interests of this country at heart, then you fall into the same error. As a lawyer, you need to have evidence. Go and get... Let me...
Barrister, please allow the honourable member to speak.
Go and get the votes and proceedings of the day, and you find out the real reason why the IG was invited. Having invited him, having not been available on the first time, he was given further opportunities. He refused. That's as simple as that. Now, so let's get on with... Leave that aside. He's a man who doesn't wish to honour the invitation of the National Assembly, the Parliament of the people. Now, having said that, this is a Parliament, the Senate and the House of Representatives, that has done much for the people. Now, you're talking as though all we do is to engage in politics. A number of bills, hundreds of bills have been passed since 2015 when we came into being. Particularly those bills that affect the economy have been passed. The Senate passed the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill. Yesterday, they had a public hearing on the Petroleum Industry Administration Bill. And those are things that will indeed engender growth in our economy. Those are things that will improve the lives of the people. We talked about unemployment. We talked about health. The Senate and the House of Representatives decided that we're going to vote 1% of the total budget for primary health care. Those are the things that we do. But it suits people to ignore those things and simply say we're playing politics because it suits the executive to denigrate and destroy the legislature. But now, there must be, let me finish on this point, there must be a clear separation of powers, non-interference in the legislative arm of government, or indeed the judiciary. There must be strict adherence to the rule of law. And those are basic fundamental norms of democracy.
While I believe all would agree that there should be separation of powers and checks and balances, we should also agree that no particular branch should be able to overreach.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. On that point, he's addressing the point to me. Absolutely, this is what we stand on. No particular branch of government should overreach to the other one. Now, the judiciary must not be interfered with, nor should the legislature be interfered with. Now, what you get nowadays is, what we're getting is we're moving towards what I call, what Lord Hailsham in 1976 called elective dictatorship, where you'll elect a government for 4 years and that government simply becomes a dictatorship because there's an overbearing power from the executive on the legislature. The legislature, the parliament, is the bulwark that stands between the people and government. If you erode that institution, then I'm afraid the citizenry is at grave risk.
Honourable Member, you have suggested very clearly in your most recent statement that the executive is essentially meddling and overreaching in legislative affairs. Absolutely. Now, the reason why I raise that is because we have seen stiff opposition, not just from the executive, but from within your own National Assembly. We have heard from the Parliamentary Support Group, a group of senators and House of Reps that have come together to say, look, we do not buy into whatever resolutions were sent out by the joint executive session. What do you have to say about the political division within the National Assembly?
There is no division. That is the beauty of Parliament. You see, in Parliament, we don't seek to gag or suppress opinions. So they're perfectly free to form a group, perfectly free to say whatever they want to say. But let me say, at that joint session, there were not just PDP members, the overwhelming majority of members attended, of House of Representatives attended, overwhelming majority of senators attended, both APC and PDP. Everyone was free to speak their mind. The debate was engaging, robust, and meaningful. And therefore, what we came out with was this aggregate sum of what happened on in that session. Now, they were there. So particularly the spokesperson who wrote that statement was there, didn't utter a word. A lot of the members were there of this so-called support group. I don't know the entire membership, but they were all there. They didn't say anything. Why? Because they saw the force of opinion that moved towards what the majority was saying, which is we need to save this country from the brink. We need not to slide into that slippery slope of an abyss where there becomes an elective dictatorship.
Barrister Abdullahi, please respond.
Yeah, I'm going to respond. I like my honourable member here. You see, one, he talked about suppression of powers. I believe so much in that. In fact, I think that is what the National Assembly has to look carefully in knowing where the power starts, where the function starts, and where it ends. And I will tell you why. I will give you an example of areas that they have overreached. Where are the powers? In what constitution or what provision of the constitution do the National Assembly or the Senate in particular derive their power to order the executive government to fire Mr. A, an appointee of an executive government? Where in the Constitution do they get that power?
We never said that.
Yeah, you did that, actually. If you remember the case of the SGF, Babachir David Law, you said the president must fire him, the SGF. You did that. You overreached.
Please continue with your point.
Yeah. Let me continue. Then also, when you said you passed a vote of no confidence on the IGP, well, you are free. You are also a group that with a freedom of expression. But whose vote of confidence does the IGP really need to have? The person who appointed him, the president. Now, it seems like that is also another kind of modeling. But if he said that the president should impress upon his appointees, like the IGP, to attend when they're invited, I agree with you. Let me finish. I have not addressed...
Unfortunately, Barrister, we have to go on break. One moment. We're going to come back.
All right.
We're going to take a very short break. There are so many issues we need to get into. Our viewers, please do stay with us.